Hey, 8th graders, it's Mr. Brown. This is um, ancient history. That's what we were studying. I don't know, do you remember weeks ago? It seems like years ago when we were together. We were studying about Roman history. And I wanted this video to just be a quick little review of what we learned in the last couple weeks and refresh your memory. And you could have your packet out and your uh, Cornell notes to look over with me in this video. I'll just try to highlight some of the things that we've been talking about. So here we go. The first thing that happened in Roman history was the founding of Rome by the mythical person Romulus. Remember Romulus and Remus, two mythical brothers. And at the very beginning of Roman history, it was murder, right? Romulus kills Remus, founds the city of Rome, and the city of Rome is a city built on murder and cruelty and lots of other terrible things. And after Romulus, there are 6 other kings, and they're all pretty bad. They are tyrants who, excuse me, do all kinds of awful things. And the last one is the worst, Tarquin. And finally, they have enough of kings in Rome. And remember, Rome is just a tiny little city at this time. It's just its own little place, not this giant empire yet. And in that city, ruled by a tyrant, Brutus saves the day, comes in and kicks out Tarquin, and he is going to be the first Brutus, but not the last Brutus of Roman history. And we're going to come to Brutus, the second, in a week or two. But for right now, this Brutus, he's our hero. He kicks out the kings, and he says, "That's not what we're going to do anymore. We're going to do something else." And that's the beginning of the Roman Republic. And it's super important for us, right? Because we are a republic. America is a republic. The United States, that's how our system of government is set up as well. And the founding fathers looked to the Roman Republic for inspiration. And some of the things that made the Roman system so unique are some of the things that make our system so unique. They had 2 consuls. That's kind of like their president. They had 2 presidents, right? 2 consuls. And we said that that would be kind of weird to have 2 people who are both in charge. But if there was ever like a crisis in Roman history, remember we talked about tyrants. They would get dictators to come in, not tyrants, dictators. Dictators come in and say, "Listen, I'm in charge for 6 months, and I'm going to solve the problems." And then it goes back to 2 consuls. And then there was a Senate. Remember, a Senate was an elected body of people that weren't just from everybody. It was just the rich people, the patricians. And the patricians could select some people to make laws, make rules, be judges. That's the Senate. And we have a Senate as well, and that's where we got that idea. Senate is that Latin word for old person, right? And so the Senate is a bunch of old people who make laws. We had in our republic, remember our hero Cincinnatus? He was our farmer hero who was appointed to be a dictator and won a battle and then just left it all, right? He didn't try to become a king. He didn't try to become a dictator. He just gave it right back to the Roman people. And he was an inspiration for our founding fathers. Remember, George Washington was considered the Cincinnatus of the Americas. What other things did we talk about from the time of the Republic? Well, there was a huge division between the rich and the poor. The rich were called the patricians, the poor people called the plebeians, and the plebeians were tired of being pushed around all the time, so they went on strike. They just left the town of Rome and said, "See you later." And the patricians were getting hungry, but also the plebeians were getting hungry, right? They needed each other, and so they appointed a guy to go out and talk to the plebes and say, "Can't we come to some sort of agreement, figure this all out?" And they gave that parable of the fable rather of the stomach and how it needs the rest of the body, and the rest of the body needs the stomach, and they all need to work together. So they come up with a system of having tribunes, and tribunes were these people who were able to veto laws that were made by the Senate. And we have that idea in our country as well, the idea that the president can veto things that the Senate or the House of Representatives does. They can just say, the president can say no. Now, it's not complete. You can override a veto, but that idea of a veto comes from this compromise between the the plebes, the poor people, and the patricians, and they elected these tribunes who could say no to these Roman laws. And then we talked about the aediles. They were in charge of business and making sure everything was fair for poor people as well. We also had talked about the written tablets, the bronze tablets, bronze tables, they were sometimes called, laws that were written down. Rome didn't have written laws really, and they wanted written laws because that would make it more fair for everyone, the poor people and people were kind of getting neglected. And so they went to Greece and other places too, but mainly Greece, and they found out what were they doing over in Greece. Greece is the place for all the smart people. Maybe Solon, this guy named Solon, his laws will help us. And so they adopt these laws, they bring it back, and they also bring back with it a new system of government that doesn't work out for very well. It just lasts for a couple years where they elect 10 guys to be in charge of those laws. But they quickly turned into tyrants themselves and little kings that weren't really serving the people, they were serving themselves. And so they got rid of that. They went back to the idea of a senate with tribunes and aediles and all the checks and balances that they had before, but they still had these 12 laws, these 12 tables of laws. And now that was an addition of something that the poor people could point to and say, hey, we have written laws. And that gave them more rights, more fairness. We talked about Roman triumphs and how if you were a general and you made some great victory, did something great, the whole city would give you a big celebration, a big parade, and they loved war, and they celebrated warfare, and the people who did great things in battle were celebrated. And we said how this created a sort of an incentive to be kind of warlike, because you wanted it to be celebrated, and you could keep the things that you conquered in war, and you could get really rich by going into war. And so Rome is sort of founded on the idea of conquering other little tinier places and incorporating them into your city. And so Rome starts to grow a little bit. We talked about the invasion of the Gauls. These were what we might call barbarians, people that might look like Vikings, coming down out of France, today's France. They were called Gauls back then, and they invaded Rome, and it was a struggle to get them out, but eventually Rome did regain their city. Remember Pyrrhus and his victory, quote unquote. We studied Pyrrhus, the guy who was almost like a mercenary, brought in from Greece to fight against Rome. And he came in with a lot of troops, and he won, but by winning it cost so much life, so much of his soldiers and his own fortune. It's not really worth it, and he left. Right, and we call that a Pyrrhic victory, a victory where you win, but really it costs too much, and so you have to almost give up. Then we had just started into Rome versus Carthage. Carthage was a city. Let me go there. It's a city on, you can see at the bottom of the screen there, or on the side of the screen. It was at the tip of Africa, so right below Rome. And they were contesting over this middle island, Sicily, between the sort of the foot of Italy versus the top of Africa, and they're contesting for that middle section. Carthage was a big city, lots of power. You can see how much land it controlled. Rome was starting out in that way, and they had lots of battles to contest this land. And I'm going to go back here. And we call these the Punic Wars between Carthage and Rome. And remember, we had just started talking about Hannibal, the guy who took a bunch of elephants, crossed over the Alps. What an amazing feat to take elephants over giant mountains and down into Rome. Going back to the screen, they took him over the Alps, and instead of crossing the sea, went all the way around through Spain, Portugal today, up through France, and down over the Alps into Italy. And it was a surprise attack, and that's just where we kind of left off before we saw each other. So that's kind of a review of Roman history. We're going to get into these Punic Wars It's a long battle, a long struggle between these two big empires, and lots of famous names are going to come out of um, these wars. And we've already talked about Hannibal, one of the sort of the heroes of the Carthaginian side, and we were just getting into some of the heroes of the Roman side. All right, so that's the review for Thursday. What's next is a reading in your packet, and I'm going to also give you a link if you've lost your packet or you didn't bring it by accident, where you can go to get the next few chapters, and you'll see those readings on RenWeb, and then next video will be discussion of those chapters and an assignment in Google Docs. What you'll need to do is open up a Google Docs, send me or share with me that Google Doc of a quick little summary of what we read in those few chapters, and maybe some notes that you took along the way, so I can keep track of your participation in the class. But you'll see that on RenWeb or Fax underneath homework, assignments, and if you have any questions, again, my email will be jbrown@trinitychristian.net. Email me anything you want, and I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible so you can stay with us on this crazy, crazy journey of figuring out what's online education going to look like at Trinity for the next couple weeks until we can get back together again. Hopefully that'll be soon. We'll see. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.